Today on CEOs You Should Know, we're joined here by a man who helped turn Midtown Manhattan's Bryant Park from this no-go zone into one of the world's busiest and most beloved green spaces in town. Here with Dan Biederman, president of Bryant Park Corporation, president of 34th Street Partnership, and founder of Biederman Redevelopment Ventures, the firm that's brought revitalization playbook to cities across the globe. Dan, it is so great to have you here today.
Thank you very much for the chance to be on your show.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So I want to jump right in and talk a little bit about Bryant Park. Most New Yorkers think about Bryant Park and they see movie nights, they see the red chairs, they see people out there playing chess, the ice rink that opens up. Light FM in New York does our Broadway and Bryant Park there every year. 40 plus years ago, it wasn't that wasn't the case, right?
That's right. Very troubled. There are crimes classified by the FBI as serious crimes, 7 of them. We had 500: murder, rape, assault, grand theft. And our aim was to bring that to 0, and we achieved it within about a decade. So it was a turnaround that was slow but then fast. And crime was only one piece of it. The place was in terrible shape. So we had to recondition it without much money. We didn't start with much because the real estate community adjacent liked the idea but didn't really believe we'd be successful. So it took a while. Reopened in '92 under our management. We took the park away from the city.
Took the park away from the city. How is it that you got involved in it?
Interesting. I was the treasurer of an entity called the 42nd Street Development Corporation, which did Theater Row in New York. And the head of that recommended me to the Rockefellers, who had decided that they would be the starter of the Bryant Park turnaround effort because of their interest in the New York Public Library. So I was one of 7 candidates. I remember the interview well. My parents were kind of shocked that I was taking a job involving parks. That was off what I had been doing.
But what were you doing before that?
I was a systems consultant for a firm that I joined out of business school.
Okay.
2.5 years. I was the only one in the firm who didn't know a thing about computers. Uh-huh. So I was the translator of what they did to the New York City officials whose books we were organizing for the first time.
Wonderful. I read recently that you once called Bryant Park the most densely used park in the world.
It is.
So, I mean, talk about a transformation. Did you imagine that 40 years ago that you were going to be at this stage?
There are so many points at which I got discouraged. The politics were very dense.
Yeah.
And I never pictured having any staff. It was just me for a few years. And we have these dozens of talented young people who do most of the work now. And I walk down the hall, see them talking to each other about detailed things, and I said, God, what I would have given in 1984 for this kind of support. And then I doubted myself at many times. Once played hooky in an afternoon because I'd gotten some bad news about the park approvals. Okay. And I went to a Kurosawa movie. Only time I played hooky in my entire life, because I knew it was depressing, and I said, it'll be so depressing that I'll think my life is great. So on the way back, I met a lawyer, famous land use lawyer, and he said, you don't look so good. What's the matter? I said, this Bryant Park thing's never going to happen. It was a terrible mistake. I've wasted 6 years of my career. And he said, no, that's nonsense. And he showed me a chart he made of good ideas, bad ideas, powerful people, powerless people. So 4 boxes. And he said, your project is a great idea. Fixing this park is fantastic. And you've got all the Rockefellers are your backers. That's powerful people. So this is in the 100% will happen box, whereas I have a lot of other people who are in the 25% or 0 box. Mm-hmm. So he's put me back on a day when I was really discouraged. And there were many of those days. It took forever.
Oh, I could imagine. So that's after 6 years. So then when did you finally say to yourself, like, you go to Bryant Park and you smile and you could be proud of all that you did? Like, how much more time did it take?
In 1992, it was safe and clean, but that was about it. It wasn't jammed with people, as you referred to. We thought we had more to do, but at that point, we were somewhat proud, and we had started up the Grand Central Business Improvement District and 34th Street at the same time. Quite a busy year. And I said, we're getting there. Now we need to find the key to make this space truly lively. And that key became what we call programming. So if you walk into Bryant Park, you're seeing ping pong on one side, a reading room on the other, petanque next to you, juggling classes, a carousel, various food and beverage locations. That's what you have to do to make public space in Midtown safe and pleasant. And that accelerated through the late 90s and O's, and that's what we're still working on today. The work is never finished.
I can imagine the red tape too you have to navigate, between agencies, property owners, community boards, right? I'm sure there's a lot of red tape you got to try to get yourself through. What was your secret weapon there? Like, how did you navigate all that?
That's a good question. I think you can't get discouraged. I try not to roll my eyes when one of my staff members comes up and says, Community Board 5 doesn't want us to do that. I used to be chairman of Community Board 5 45 years ago. So because if I roll my eyes, then they're going to roll their eyes, and I don't want them to be negative. So the secret is not to get too depressed about the thickness of the bureaucracy. And New York City is only average, believe it or not, in the bureaucracy field. Although my chairman, who was the chairman of Time Inc., when I started, Andrew Heiskell, somebody asked him in an interview, what's taking so long in the need to turn Bryant Park around? And he said, well, young man, everybody in the Western Hemisphere and his brother has to review this project twice. And the guy laughed, and it was really almost that bad. There were many, many layers of approval.
So let's talk a little bit about scale. I mean, you started New York City. You've done things all over the country, globally. When you take the Bryant Park playbook into one of those new cities, what are you taking from that? I'm sure there's a ton of learnings that you've had.
Yes. Bryant Park's the laboratory for the work we're doing in San Francisco, Houston, Dallas, El Paso, West Palm Beach, St. Petersburg. A lot of our work's in San Francisco, Texas, and Florida. So we've tried out these techniques, and most of them work in different cities. There are slight differences between cities, but if you ask about people in San Francisco, do they want to do free exercise like yoga outside? The answer is yes. Do they want to listen to music? Yes. Do they want to eat and drink in a nice environment with gorgeous flowers and trees around? Yes. So those are the old mainstays. And then we customize by city. San Francisco, I always tell people, is a very high IQ public space group. I was shocked when we opened a space there, Salesforce Park, on top of the transit center, how intelligent on opening day the comments were that people were making. There was behind me, I was incognito, except I wear a business suit, so they thought I was some kind of weird outsider. And the guy behind me had his 10-year-old son, and he's lecturing his son on what my theory was in doing the park. He didn't know me. He just figured it out. And I told my staff, if that's what San Francisco is like, this is incredible. This guy must be a tech guy. And he's telling his 10-year-old son very intelligently what our theory in running the park is. So this is going to be a pleasure to work here.
There you go. How much local input must go into that? Because, you're obviously connected to New York City. You have that feel, the deep roots around New York City. When you go to a San Francisco, are you asking people, are you talking to the community? That's
a very good question. I have two answers to it. One is positive and one is slightly negative.
Okay.
It's good.
What are we doing first, positive or negative?
Positive first. Okay. It is a good idea to ask local people what would appeal to them to do in the space. I'll give you an example. We worked for the Green Bay Packers on what's called Titletown, which if you watch NFL games sometimes pops up when the Packers are home. And it's right near Lambeau Field. And because we did what's called outreach, which is the point of your question, we met various people we call programming partners who said they will come in and run these programs for us. One guy was interested in curling, and he said, I'm going to do this for free. I just am so devoted to curling spreading throughout northern Wisconsin. I'm going to run this for you. So we never would have met the guy if we hadn't done what we call outreach. The bad side of outreach is it becomes a little slavish. In a recent project in Virginia, it was so time-consuming, and there were so many outreach sessions. And I said to my staff, at the end of the time, we got to realize that we know a lot about this, so we'll pick up some ideas from this, but we're not going to tell people that we got the answer from our outreach sessions. So it's good and bad. Everybody's doing it. We're asked to do it sometimes. Other times there's a local player who does. So Outreach can have two sides to it.
Without a doubt, it's like anything. The data that you collect, you look at it, you dissect it, and you figure out the direction that you're going to go, the direction you're going to take it.
Yep.
So you must be crazy busy. You lead multiple organizations, Bryant Park Corporation, 34th Street Partnership, BRV. How do you maintain this constant vision while adapting to all these different challenges that must hit you day in and day out?
The three have to be seamless.
Yeah.
So I will pick up ideas out of town and bring them back, and then vice versa. Bryant Park ideas go out to those other places. One way, it's very time consuming. I don't travel as well as I did when I was 30. I find the flights to the West Coast very tiring, and it's against the wind, so you're talking 6 hours. But the stimulation of working all across the country keeps me going. I really enjoy knowing a lot of cities. I tell people I've been in every major American city except Columbus and Tulsa. I've been in 49 states, and that's really fun. I've always wanted to know all these places no one else knows, and I find, interestingly, a lot of CEOs in Manhattan who I deal with have not been all around the country. They've been to glamorous places like London, which I love, but they have not been to some of these other towns, Albuquerque, San Antonio. So that's a lot of the fun of it, being able to see these other places. And these cities differ from each other enormously as to the conditions on the ground, the attitudes, politically especially. It's fascinating.
And then you mentioned programming before. The programming has to be very different for every place you go.
Mostly. There's some, we call them automatic winners. Food and fitness and music almost always work in whatever city you're in. But there's other stuff that's more particular to the city you're in. We have more literary stuff in Bryant Park because of the library being next door, and it's also a city of readers, as San Francisco is, where we have two big projects. So there's a little bit of local adaptation, but almost everybody likes those 3 or 4 key winners, as we call it.
Of course, I see that. Like, what else in San Francisco? What's a little different there than might be in New York City? One
of the fascinating things is the weather. The first thing I ask when I arrive, and I've got a group of, let's say, 25 people. We just did this in St. Petersburg 10 days ago. How many days would you and your family say that it's nice weather here? So I don't want them telling me it's 55, 82. Just how many nice days? Is today a nice day? And they said, absolutely. It's a little humid, but this is about as good as you get in October in St. Petersburg, Florida. So the cities that have limited number of nice days, you've got to do something to fill in those unnice days. For example, Dallas, you can't program really from July 1 to Labor Day because it's 107 degrees. It's brutal. Houston, same thing, and it's humid, more humid there. So that is a big difference. The northern cities, we've worked in Buffalo, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Green Bay, Detroit, and there you lose the good weather about October 5th. New York is October 15th. So then you got to figure out a winter activity, and that's what the Bryant Park Winter Village is all about. We used to have we have 10 days of pretty nice weather in New York. So now we have, in effect, 220 because we've added the winter days. It's 40 degrees. People are wearing winter gear, and they're happy to sit out next to our skating rink in 40-degree weather or 37-degree weather. So weather is a key thing. And San Francisco the weather is bizarre.
It is.
Easterners who don't know about it, the famous Mark Twain quote is, "I've never been so cold as in the summer in San Francisco." And they, unlike the Seattle people who are happy to be in the rain without an umbrella, San Francisco, it rains a lot, even though it says it's 15 inches of rain a year. I don't believe it, but they say that's all they get. But it's drizzly and the like, and if it's drizzly, they won't come out. So we lose our crowd at Union Square in San Francisco a lot. We missed a lot of programming this year because of bad weather.
What, with the amount of projects that are coming at you, I'm sure day in and day out, how do you decide what's going to be next? What project you're going to...
Well, it's very mercenary at this point because I only can take on a certain amount of stuff. It's a tiny company, the consulting firm. It's only 12 or 13 people. So it's now come down to a negotiation over fees. There are some I'd love to do, but it's just not enough money for us to pay attention to it. So some of them have seen Bryant Park, have been there constantly, say, can you do Bryant Park for us in this public space that's now godforsaken? And if there's enlightened self-interest behind some of the owners there, where they say, we will pay for this and fix it with you, then we take them on. So that's how the San Francisco projects started. Dallas, the Cap Park in Dallas, we did Clyde Warren Park, which is pretty famous now in downtown Dallas, downtown and uptown Dallas. And those are projects where there's enough money to make it worthwhile for us as a consulting firm.
I'd be curious to know, is there, you're a New Yorker, is there a landmark in New York City that, if there were no politics, no budget limits, what would you do differently? What landmark would you want to change up? Throwing a little curveball out at you.
I have this list on my desk that's very egotistical, spaces in the United States that only I can fix.
Okay.
So I apologize for it. Some of them are, Union Square was on it. Now we're doing that. One in Detroit where the Joe Louis statue is. It's Hart Plaza, a few others. In New York, there's nothing in New York on it because, we've spun off some efforts to do things and others have done it on our own. I'm trying to think. Well, obviously, I'd run the subways differently. We're thinking of adopting the Bryant Park subway station because we got it renamed from 42nd Street to 42nd Street Bryant Park, but it's now giving Bryant Park a bad name. It's so terrible. It smells of urine. There are drug guys hanging around. The restroom is mediocre, which is not bad, but it's mediocre. We run restrooms a lot better. So it's a hard question you ask, but I guess I'd say the subway stations. And if you look at, I'm abroad quite a bit. Their stations are quite nice. Paris has done a very nice job with their subway stations.
Paris subway stations.
Metro stations,
gorgeous, yeah.
So I guess that's the thing I would pick.
Okay, that's a good one. For any young urban planners or city leaders that are out there and they're looking to kind of get their foot in the door, and what advice would you give about building partnerships and sustaining the momentum in this, these complex long-term projects? Well,
what the young people want to get into the field need to bring to it is a couple of backgrounds, and I think what they're doing wrong, some of them who come to me and say we'd like to work for you. The background isn't hard enough. I think planning is an okay background, but when I started, I realized of the 4 things, I quickly realized what I'd need to know. And I said, I only have 2 of those 4, real estate, government, business, and design. And I really wasn't deep in real estate at the time, even though I had an MBA. And I was in design. I had to go to many sessions and read many books. So when I'm interviewing people, I look to see how many of those 4 they at least have a smattering of knowledge in. And that's the way to get into the field, aside from traveling a lot. Too many people are young, they come to Manhattan, and then they stay within this tiny little island. It's not even part of the United States mainland, and never get out enough because they love New York so much. That's bad. They've got to travel more for whatever purpose, seeing their relatives, going to conferences, and traveling in places that a lot of their friends don't go to, mundane places.
Mundane places, yeah. Okay. Is there one thing you want people to take away from your mission?
Well, our basic theme is to do this outside of government with our own money.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these projects don't get started because the government money that's attached to them has too many strings attached to it. So a good idea is as soon as you take over a public space is to say, how am I going to finance this privately? And that's what we've done. Bryant Park has a $30 million budget. Yeah. It started at $110,000 in 1980. So it sounds arrogant to say I do what I want, but I much more do what I want than if I had government money for some of that $30 million. We have not accepted a government check since 1996. So that's that. Having your own earned income stream is a great approach.
Without a doubt, that's impressive. If people wanted to support your mission, support what you're doing, how can they go about doing that?
Well, political support, we still face a lot of criticism at times. That would be one thing. And then if anybody listens to this who's a high net worth individual, there's usually a place to fund something you care about next to an asset you care about, whether your house or your office or an office building you own, by leading the private sector effort to turn the place around. I get a lot of approaches like that. There's some people who are out there looking for ultra high net worth people, like Dan Gilbert did in Detroit. He turned around downtown Detroit because he loved it, from Rocket Mortgage. So there's a search for more Dan Gilberts, and if anybody's listening who happens to be in that category, I think his net worth is $11 billion. But anybody like that listening, call me.
Oh, by all means, call me too, just for fun. I think that'd be great. Well, Dan, it was a pleasure to have you on the program today. Thank you so much for coming by.
Pleasure. Good questions.
Obviously, going to be following along. We're New Yorkers, so we're at Bryant Park every year, of course. But thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us on the program
It's
today.
been a pleasure. Thanks for the good questions.